All right, so next up, Zachary. I know him as Zach, and I don't play favorites, but if I had another favorite deployment provider, it would be Coherence. Zachary, thank you. I'll leave it to you.
Yeah, likewise, Redwood is our favorite too. And yeah, thanks to the Redwood team and everybody who's here. Really excited to show you more about Coherence. And I think, to start with, I'm going to show you something that is, in the grand scheme of things, relatively similar to what we just saw with flight control, right? Coherence is also a developer experience layer that helps you build and deploy cloud native applications onto your own cloud account. So Coherence supports AWS, like we saw with flight control. We also support Google Cloud Platform, if you're interested in using Google as well. And I think it's really exciting to see all the innovation happening because, as someone who's been a startup CTO for a long time and deployed a lot of applications over my years, the amount of time and hair I've pulled out solving these problems over and over again is something I'm excited that the next generation won't have to deal with. So yeah, similar, David, if I could get my screen shared, I'm going to jump into a live demo as well. And I'm sure I'll have my own issues with the demo gods as we do it. But, I'm going to start similar to what we saw with flight control. Coherence does have an integration with the Redwood yarn command. So you can do yarn Redwood setup Coherence, just like flight control, and it will inject the correct configuration and code modifications to get you a successful deployment. So I'm sort of skipping the onboarding process and jumping into a deployed application to show you a little bit. And this is also an application deployed on AWS. What we're seeing on the screen here are the different types of environments that Coherence manages. So, in addition to your branch preview type environments, which main is an environment for my main branch, and I can see the AWS deployment of this application right here. I've got a branch preview set up for my Redwood feature branch that I've also deployed. And what I did is change the title of this, this page for the homepage. Our demo application is a task management application also. And some of the things that you're seeing on the page that I think are interesting to just note are around Coherence also managing a production environment, and we're doing that in a different AWS account or Google Cloud project than the rest of these environments. In general, we feel like it's our opportunity to bring best practices to the teams that we work with, who are often small teams that if they were working on their own, even if they did write their own Terraform and get to deploying their applications, they're not able to get to the best practices that AWS and Google and all the other clouds are publishing in their white papers as far as like how you should use these platforms to the fullest. So the normal workflow in Coherence is that teams are working in GitHub and tools like GitHub and Slack. So this is the PR for my my little change to the title that we just looked at. And what you'll see is, the Coherence bot posted the URL we just looked at on this for me. So, when my team pushed to this environment, the PM doesn't have to go to Coherence or anything. It's easy for them to just access the preview environment and do their work. And within each of these environments, you're going to see, as you push code, you're going to see build and deployments, and we're going to link you to AWS appropriately, and pull in the relevant information that we can, but link you to AWS appropriately to find things. You can manage variables here, and so similar to what we just saw, you can have a collection level environment variables that are what we call collection level environment variables that are by default injected into all of these preview environments, and then I can right in the UI really easily override values for particular environments. Like, let's say I have a feature flag that I want to turn on for this environment or something like that. There's an easy way to do that. All these variables ultimately are stored in Cloud Secrets Manager under the hood, and they're mapped correctly to the right environments across the build, deploy, and runtime phases of your application. And so, the idea here is to just give you a nicer developer experience on top of the Secrets Manager product. What I want to show you next is, I think where Coherence is really interesting and something we're really excited about is cloud development environments. So in addition to the branch preview environments and the kind of staging or production environments you might be managing, we have a built-in, similar to a GitHub Codespaces or Gitpod type experience, which are amazing products that we want to encourage the use of all these kinds of tools. A VS Code in the cloud that actually is running, in addition to VS Code and the ability to edit the code, is really running the development server for your application right in it. So this is deployed right on the instance for this VS Code, and I don't have to deploy anything to see these changes reflected. You can see they're already reflected here in this tab. I can do my own personal development, maybe use these for pair programming or something. And then as soon as I git push, which I can do right from here, I would see another build. We'll just do this for fun. I can see another build when we go back to the other screen will be generated, but I wanted to take the opportunity while we're in this environment, not to close that, but to show you the kind of, this is, different than JSON. We chose YAML. This is the configuration it would take to get a simple application deployed on Coherence. And, obviously we have our documentation with, robust examples of different types of applications and how they can be deployed. And, you don't have to do any of this to get started with Redwood because they've been such great partners. The last thing that, I wanted to show as far as the normal workflow, how teams use us is that, this build information here is, available in the Coherence dashboard. And you can see, the data streaming in as far as this build that we just pushed is running. We're also going to see the status of these deployments reflected here. And if we configure tests, including integration tests like end-to-end, so, using tools like Cypress or Playwright tests, these would show up as check run statuses on the PR. So you could apply things like branch protection rules. And so a common use case is teams run end-to-end integration tests on top of these preview environments after each deploy to make sure that they haven't broken their features. And then we'll also post these build statuses into Slack so that there's an easy way for your team to see as you deploy and deep link you to the right places. And it's easy to see, what did we just deploy when I get this notification. So yeah, I think that is a quick whirl through demo of Coherence. Some other features that people really appreciate. If we go in here, in addition to the workspace, we have another cloud environment called the Toolbox that is a cloud shell session just for this environment. And let's say I need to run a REPL and get a shell to run a Prisma command for a manual change for a bug I found or for something that a user requested. I'm able to do that without having to directly access AWS CLI and use tools on my laptop and confuse different environments like production and local or production and development with the credentials and environment variables that I have present. This is going to match the exact configuration for the right database instance for this preview, the right variables for this preview, and let you execute your commands directly in the cloud, right? Nothing to install and audited and logged and managed by Coherence on your behalf. And yeah, the last thing I would say is we spend a lot of time on things like database seeding, database migration, database snapshot loading, capabilities to bring up environments in a usable state. What we found working with teams trying to bring on previews is that the hard part is not just deploying the infrastructure, but is making the environment usable for non-technical stakeholders as it comes up. So yeah, I think happy to talk questions and excited to learn more from the community about what they need from tools like this. There's so much innovation happening. It's a really exciting time.
Yeah, thank you, Zachary. Workspaces, very interesting. Amy,
yeah, we're excited about them.
Amy, over to you.
Yeah, I love the workspaces feature as well as the toolbox. The fact that you can do that without having to go over to the Amazon CLI is pretty great. What would you say is the best way for someone to get started?
So with a Redwood project, they should just type yarn Redwood, set up Coherence. They go to our app, and similar to all these other things, you install a GitHub app in our UI and click a button, and you're off to the races.
That's awesome.
We are also super happy to reach out to us through our links on our documentation or our homepage, and we're super happy to answer questions and be helpful in getting apps migrated as well.
Elena, the VC, do you have any questions,
Yeah,
reactions?
I have a question. So it seems like a really great user experience, B, very easy to get started, especially for like startups, smaller companies. My question is like, I'll phrase it maybe two different ways. Like one is what's to stop like a company from like starting to use this and then like, let's say it gets too expensive or something and just saying, okay, actually let's just like forego the good developer experience and like, you know, just use AWS or something. Or maybe another way of phrasing that is like, what do you find is like the actual really critical thing that developers are like, oh, we have to like continue paying for this because this one thing?
We think that the ROI, the value proposition of creating leverage for DevOps teams and platform teams and being able to shift, and infrastructure management to developers while still being within the confines of what the infrastructure team wants to do is so big that teams, they don't want to leave the experience once they have it. And they're able to augment, because we're in your own cloud, they're able to augment as they grow and scale. We haven't yet found that people are worried about cost as they scale on these kinds of platforms. The most important features are consistent environment management that doesn't require a DevOps team to handhold developers to walk through, right? Even things like CDK and Pulumi generally, even though they're more developer friendly, still require the infrastructure team support for developers to make changes. And our value prop is really that we're able to shift that over and you can get a preview environment running or a new demo environment running for a sales team without a DevOps person being involved.
Got
That's
it.
really
So you find then that like in most of your customers, it's just like developers and engineers are the user. And like by using this, they don't actually need to build a DevOps or a platform team because they're able to manage it themselves with this.
So they're still going to need a platform and DevOps team as they grow, right? And they need to do customizations on top of the sort of basic resources and environments that we're orchestrating. But they definitely can have a smaller team and a more effective team with our tool.
Cool.
And Robin, you've got a couple solid choices now. What do you think?
Yeah, this looked great. It looks like you guys put serious thought into the user interface and the display of relevant information on. So very clean, good looking interface. And I really liked, kind of what you were saying about, okay, the developers can kick off an environment here and the product managers can just go find the live link on this main page. The two-sided sword there is like, I'm guessing you also have user-based access control, right? Where a project manager can click on open the link, but they can't go accidentally delete the production database URL environment.
Yes, of course. Of course, there are, today there are roles for people that can launch a toolbox or deploy to production and people that can edit membership and can. We have a lot of fun stuff on our roadmap. Like the best one's like a 2-person role to access prod data, right? Nobody can launch a prod toolbox unless someone else says that it's okay. And advanced features like that are what compliance-focused teams need. I spent about 10 years as a health tech CTO, and so I have a very deep-seated place in my heart for questions like that, and we really want to do right by those kinds of teams.
And Zachary, thank you. But I tell you what, you're taking all the fun out of dropping a production database table. So thank you for your time. Really appreciate you.